Ever feel like your website's going to like totally crash with too many people trying to get on? Or maybe you're dealing with a server that's, I don't know, kind of like more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, today we're diving into cloud computing, especially Microsoft Azure, and how it could be like the perfect solution for all your tech headaches. We've got some awesome excerpts from this like super helpful tutorial on cloud computing and the AZ900 certification.
Oh yeah, that AZ900, that's the one that can really make you a certified Azure Pro.
Exactly.
What's kind of funny is how many people think cloud computing is this like vague, mysterious thing.
Right.
But actually, it's already a huge part of our, digital lives. Think about it, streaming services, online banking. It's all powered by the cloud behind the scenes.
It's so true. You don't really think about it until, like, your movie's about to get good and then, bam, buffering. So let's back up and say, what exactly is cloud computing? The source defines it as, and I'm quoting here, accessing IT resources on demand over the internet. But, like, what's that actually mean?
Okay, so imagine this. Instead of owning all that expensive hardware and software yourself, you're basically renting it from a provider. Like, say you want to film a cool video, but you don't want to buy a crazy expensive camera. You just rent one when you need it.
Oh, I get it.
Exactly.
So instead of having a whole room full of servers using up tons of space and energy, you're using this shared pool of computing power and storage provided by companies like, Microsoft or Google or Amazon.
Right.
And you only pay for what you use, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's a total game changer, especially for businesses like startups or smaller companies that can't just drop a ton of money on IT stuff up front. It's like suddenly they've got the same power as a giant company, but without the crazy costs.
I love that. And that brings us to the different flavors of cloud computing. You've got your IaaS, your PaaS, your SaaS. This is where I always get a little, like, lost in the acronyms. Can you break it down for a simple folk?
Okay, sure. Think of it like building a house, right? With IaaS, that's infrastructure as a service. It's like you're buying the land and building the whole house yourself. You've got the basic stuff like the foundation, the walls, but you got to handle all the details, the plumbing, the wiring, everything.
Lots of control, but also lots of responsibility.
Exactly. Now with PaaS, platform as a service, it's more like renting a fully furnished apartment. The landlord, in this case the cloud provider, takes care of all the infrastructure stuff. You just focus on decorating and arranging your furniture, which means, developing and managing your apps.
So it's making things easier for the developer. They don't have to worry about all the underlying stuff.
Yep, exactly. And then you got SaaS, software as a service. That's like your streaming service. You just use the software, no setup, no maintenance, nothing. Like Gmail or Microsoft 365 or Salesforce, you just log in and you're good to go.
Okay, so for someone thinking about taking the AZ900 exam, how important is it to understand these different models?
Oh, it's super important. It's like foundational knowledge. You got to know how they're different, when you'd use one over the other, how they fit into the whole cloud picture.
Got it. And speaking of the whole cloud picture, let's talk about deploying your cloud resources. Our source talks about three main options: public, private, and hybrid. Can you walk us through those?
Okay, so picture a public cloud like a big, busy park. It's open to everyone, lots of stuff to do, and you get to enjoy it without having to maintain it. That's kind of like a public cloud shared resources, but it's cost effective and easy to, scale up if you need to.
So that's great for, say, individuals or small businesses who don't have super sensitive data to worry about. But what about private clouds? Are those like the VIP section of the cloud?
Haha, yeah, something like that. Private clouds are like having your own private estate, total control over everything, security, resources. It's perfect for organizations with like strict security rules or those dealing with super confidential data.
Got it. And hybrid cloud, well, I guess the name kind of speaks for itself, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a mix of public and private. So you might use the public cloud for like your everyday computing needs, but keep your super important apps or sensitive data on a private cloud. You get the best of both worlds.
Flexibility is key.
Exactly.
Okay, so now we've covered the what's and the where of cloud computing, but where does Microsoft Azure fit into all this?
Well, Microsoft Azure, it's a leading public cloud platform, and it's a great example of everything we've been talking about. It's like this massive tech playground with tons of services and tools to choose from.
We're talking compute power, storage, databases, networking, analytics. The tutorial even mentions AI and machine learning, which sounds super futuristic.
Oh, yeah, Azure's way more than just storing files or hosting websites. It's a platform for like serious innovation. You can build and deploy complex apps, analyze huge amounts of data, even use AI to solve real problems. It's pretty incredible.
This is getting me really excited about Azure.
Me too.
But before we get too carried away, let's take a quick pause. We'll be back in a flash to really dig into what makes Azure tick and how the AZ900 certification can help you master it. Stay tuned. All right, we're back. Before the break, we kind of set the stage talking about cloud computing in general.
Right, the basics.
Now let's zoom in on Microsoft Azure. Honestly, I'm a little, I don't know, overwhelmed by how much Azure can do. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a massive platform, but think of it like exploring a new city, right? You don't try to see everything at
You
once.
got to start somewhere.
Yeah, start with the main attractions, the landmarks, get a feel for the place.
I like that analogy. So, what are some of the must-sees in Azure?
Well, compute power, that's a big one. Azure's got all these virtual machines, basically like remote computers you can rent to run your apps and stuff. It's like having a whole server room, but without the hassle, you know?
So, no need to buy a super powerful server that just sits there most of the time.
Right, exactly.
You just spit up a virtual machine when you need it, pay as you go.
Mm.
Smart.
And Azure's got all kinds of virtual machines, different sizes, different specs. So you pick the right one for what you're doing. Simple website, complex data analysis, whatever,
There's a virtual machine for that.
pretty much.
Now, our source material mentions all these other services too, storage, databases, networking. It's a lot to keep track of. Can we break down some of those key areas?
Sure, let's start with storage. Azure has a bunch of options from like basic blob storage, that's for just storing files, to more advanced databases for managing, structured data.
Okay, so blob storage is like a giant hard drive in the cloud.
Yeah, exactly. You can store documents, images, videos, backups, anything really.
Got it. Now, what about databases? I know those are important, but they can get pretty complicated.
True, Azure offers both SQL and NoSQL databases. So SQL databases like Azure SQL Database, they're good for relational data, where you've got data organized in tables with relationships between them. Makes sense, right?
So far, so good.
Now, NoSQL databases like Azure Cosmos DB, they're more flexible. They're designed for unstructured data like social media posts, sensor readings, stuff like that.
So you pick the database that works best for your specific app? Cool. What about networking? That's got to be important, right? Especially if you're running apps in the cloud.
Totally. Azure's got you covered there too. Virtual networks, load balancers, DNS services, the whole works. Virtual networks, they let you create these like isolated network environments in the cloud, kind of like setting up a network in your own data center. Load balancers, they help distribute traffic across multiple servers, so if your app's getting slammed with requests, no problem. And DNS services, they help translate domain names into IP addresses. Makes it easier for people to find your app.
It's amazing how much Azure does behind the scenes so developers don't have to, pull their hair out.
It's all about simplifying things.
And the tutorial also mentions that Azure is global with data centers all over the world. Why is that such a big deal?
Well, it means you can put your apps and data closer to your users no matter where they are. Less latency, faster response times.
Everyone's happy.
Exactly. Plus, it's more reliable. If one data center has a problem, your apps can just switch to another one. No biggie.
So we've got compute power, storage, databases, networking, global reach. It's kind of like Azure's got it all, even AI and machine learning, which seems so far out there before.
Yeah, Azure has some pretty awesome AI and machine learning tools. You can build apps that learn and adapt, like use Azure Cognitive Services to add stuff like image recognition, speech to text, natural language processing to your apps. Or build your own custom machine learning models with Azure Machine Learning to solve specific problems.
This is really mind-blowing stuff, but Azure seems like it's constantly changing, adding new features. How do you even keep up?
That's where the AZ900 certification comes in. It's a great way to get a solid understanding of like the core concepts and services.
Okay, so we've explored this amazing Azure world with its servers and data centers and all that, but how do you prove you can actually navigate it?
The AZ900, that's your ticket. It's the Microsoft Azure Fundamentals certification. Basically, it shows you've got a good grasp of cloud basics and Azure services.
Like your cloud computing driver's license.
Haha, yeah, something like that.
But like any driver's license, you got to study for it, right? What does the AZ900 actually cover?
It covers a lot, starting with like the core principles of cloud computing, those different service models we talked about, IaaS, PaaS, SaaS. You'll also need to know about the different deployment models, public, private, hybrid.
So that's the foundation, but I'm guessing there's more to it than that. What about Azure-specific services?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You'll need to know about compute, storage, databases, networking, all the stuff we've been talking about. Plus, things like Azure security features, management tools, pricing, support models. It's pretty comprehensive.
Sounds like a lot to learn. Where does somebody even start?
Well, Microsoft has a ton of resources to help you prepare. They've got these free online training courses through Microsoft Learn. It's a really cool platform with interactive modules, hands-on labs, practice tests, all that good stuff. Learn at your own pace, focus on what you need.
Sounds like a good starting point. And the tutorial also mentions hands-on experience. How important is that?
Super important. There's no substitute for actually getting in there and using Azure. Microsoft has a free trial account. You get access to a bunch of Azure resources, play around with different services, deploy some simple apps, get a feel for how things work.
Try before you buy, basically.
Exactly.
And once you feel ready, you can schedule the AZ900 exam. What's that like?
You can schedule it online through Pearson Review, that's Microsoft's testing partner. The exam's on the computer, multiple choice, multiple response questions. You get a certain amount of time, and you need a passing score to get certified.
So we've talked about what Azure is, how it works, how to learn about it. But there's still one big question, why? Why should someone bother with all this? What's in it for them?
Good question. The AZ900, it's a valuable credential, especially if you're thinking about a career in cloud computing or you just want to boost your skills. It shows you understand cloud fundamentals and can work with Azure. And that's a big plus in today's job market.
Like a seal of approval from Microsoft saying this person knows their Azure.
Exactly. A lot of employers specifically look for Azure certifications when they're hiring. The AZ900, it can really help you stand out.
But beyond the career stuff, is there a benefit for, like, personal growth?
Oh, absolutely. Learning about cloud computing and Azure, it opens up all these possibilities. You pick up valuable tech skills, you get a better understanding of how technology is changing everything. Plus, you become part of this like community of Clapper professionals.
So it's not just about passing a test. It's about, like, expanding your horizons, right? Learning skills for the future.
It is.
That's pretty cool. But before we get too philosophical, let's take another quick break. We'll be back soon to finish up our Azure journey and see what lies beyond the AZ900. Okay, we're back, ready to, wrap up our Azure adventure. After that whirlwind tour of features and that whole AZ900 deep dive, I'm feeling pretty pumped about Azure. It can really change things. Businesses, careers, maybe even the world.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
But where do we go from here? What's next?
Well, the AZ900, that's just the beginning, really. It's like you're laying the foundation for a skyscraper, You need that solid base before you build anything really amazing.
So what kind of floors could we add to that foundation? Like what other certs or learning paths would make sense after the AZ900?
Oh, there's a ton. Microsoft has all these role-based certifications. They go deeper into specific areas of Azure. Like if you want to build apps, you could go for the Azure Developer Associate Cert. If you're into data, maybe the Azure Data Engineer Associate's more your thing. And if security is your passion, there's the Azure Security Engineer Associate. Lots of options.
It's like picking your specialty, right? You can be the architect, the data whiz, the security guru, whatever you're into.
Exactly. And you don't have to stick to just one. You can mix and match, build your own unique skill set.
I like that. But our source keeps saying that cloud computing is always changing. How do you keep up with all that? It seems like it'd be hard.
It's true. Things move fast in the cloud world. Microsoft's always updating Azure, adding new stuff, new certifications. It's like a never-ending learning process.
So you can't just get one cert and call it a day. You got to stay curious, keep learning.
Exactly. Luckily, Microsoft's got tons of resources to help. Online docs, blog posts, webinars, even virtual conferences. Plus, there's a huge community of Azure folks online, always sharing what they know. It's a pretty cool ecosystem.
Sounds like it. So it's not just about servers and data centers. It's about, like, always pushing forward, right? Being part of something bigger.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really dynamic and rewarding field. And as more companies move to the cloud, the demand for Azure skills is only going to go up.
So for our listeners who've been with us this whole time, soaking it all in, what's the main takeaway you want them to remember? What's the big picture?
The cloud and Azure especially, it's more than just tech. It's like a launch pad for new ideas, for creativity. It open up so many possibilities. It doesn't matter if you're a tech expert or just starting out. Azure's got something for you.
It's not just about the tech itself. It's about what you can do with it. Solving problems, creating new things, shaping the future. That's pretty powerful stuff.
It is. So if you're even a little bit interested in what you've heard today, take that next step. Check out those free resources on Microsoft Learn. Try the free Azure trial. See where it takes you. Who knows, maybe you'll be the next Azure Star, building incredible apps, analyzing mountains of data, creating the next wave of like super intelligent solutions.
The sky's the limit, or maybe I should say the cloud's the limit.
Haha, yeah, that's a good one. The cloud's vast, always growing, and the possibilities are endless.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this Azure Deep Dive, everyone. Hope you learned a ton, and you're feeling inspired to explore the power of the cloud. Until next time, keep learning, keep innovating, and keep reaching for the clouds.